All right, on page 469 today, we're going to start a section on similar polygons. And similar polygons have the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. Similar polygons, they have the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. Think of it as an enlargement or a reduction. If you had a triangle and you just enlarged it, all right, the two images would be similar to each other. Or if you had any shape at all and you just shrunk it down, you reduced it. All right, those two shapes would be similar to each other. And we're going to say that as with congruence statements, the order of the vertices is very important. It identifies the corresponding angles and sides. Now, you've written congruence statements this year, and you've already listed pairs of congruent angles and pairs of congruent sides. And you're basically going to be doing the same thing today, except we're going to be using the word similar. And the symbol for similar is just a little bit different than the symbol for congruent. So first thing I want to do is we're going to look at example 1 on page 469. And then that example is basically what you're going to be doing today. We got a shorter period today because you guys are taking your fast reading test today during your homeroom. So example 1 on page 469. All right, the example says if triangle FGH, got triangle FGH, is similar to, here's the symbol for is similar to, it's just this little one squiggly line, triangle JKL. List all pairs of congruent angles and write a proportion that relates the corresponding sides. So we need to list congruent angles and write a proportion that relates the sides, that relates corresponding sides. So we're going to do it without drawing the pictures. So list congruent angles. So here's our angles that are congruent. What is angle F congruent to? Angle F is congruent to angle J. They're both in the first position of the similarity statement. And angle G is congruent to angle K. And then finally, angle H is congruent to angle L. All right, we've done that before multiple times. Second part is the proportion. And here's what your proportion is going to look like. I'm going to take the first two letters of the first triangle, FG, and I'm going to put it in the numerator over the first two letters in the second description, JK. So FG over JK is going to be equal to, now I'm going to use the second and third letter in the first description. So GH over, what's GH going to go over? KL, good. Second and third letter over second and third letter. And that is going to be equal to the two that we haven't used yet, first and last. All right, so FH over first and last, which is JL. So first we listed our congruent angles based on this similarity statement. And then we listed, or we wrote a proportion that related the corresponding sides. And we used the similarity statement to do that as well. All right. Anybody have a problem with any of that? Okay. So let's do one more example. Let's look at the guided practice just below there. The guided practice in the diagram, NPQR. So now we've got NPQR similar to UVST. List all pairs of congruent angles, write a proportion that relates the congruent or the corresponding sides. So our angles is, I'm not going to use the angle symbol each time. I'm just going to say that, remember, the angles are congruent. So N is congruent to U. P is congruent to V. Q is congruent to S. And R is congruent to T. Those are our congruent angles. And then now our proportion. That relates corresponding sides. Again, I'm going to start off with the first two vertices of the first shape. So NP over UV is going to be equal to PQ over VS, which is going to be equal to QR over ST, which will be equal to, now I'm going to use first and last, NR over UT. And that is what makes these two shapes similar. Corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding sides are proportional. So if we had values for all these sides, if we divided NP by UV, that quotient would be equal to PQ divided by VS and QR divided by ST and NR divided by UT. All of these fractions will be equal to each other. And when that holds true, the shapes are similar. All right. Any questions on any of that? Okay, then your practice for today, I'm going to keep it simple. The period's a little bit shorter than normal. On page 472, I want you to do problems 1 and 2. And then over on the next page, problem 10 and 11. Problems 10 and 11. There was an electronic assignment yesterday, so please get back in the habit of checking Focus daily for electronic assignments. Those will close at the end of each week. We're going to do a study guide tomorrow, and quiz 1 of second semester will be on this Friday.